Welcome back to the On Therapy podcast with Simon Paul. I'm Simon Sanborn.
I'm Paul Jacobson.
Cool. Paul, you got some things to share with us?
You bet. Simon, a lot of times these topics um, are maybe interesting to people, but sometimes can be kind of intense. It might strike a chord with us, as we reflect on our own life. And, um, I just want to make people aware that sometimes these topics can kind of be a sensitive one for us, and just to be aware of that as we listen to the podcast.
Perfect. Yeah, you thought of this subject for today for parenting boys.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned it, it kind of rang for me pretty good. And so having had five boys, um,
Hmm.
so I purposely didn't think a lot about it because as soon as I started thinking about it, I started getting a little emotional. So I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to hold on to this and let this go for a little bit so we can talk about it so I can see kind of what shows up. But when what brought up the idea of you wanting to talk about raising boys?
Yeah, and just meeting with some of our cohort members this morning. And
Shout out
talk,
to Mickey and Chelsea.
yeah, there we go. And hearing about topics that we could discuss.
Mm,
Mickey had brought up about her sons and just wanting to help them be good listeners, to be good partners in the future, to be good friends, uh, good fathers. And, it really got me thinking, this is a great topic. It's a very important one.
hmm
As parents, we care deeply. We want to, um, raise our kids to be resilient, uh,
mm,
to be able to react to their emotions in appropriate ways,
yeah.
um, to um, really be able to hear out the people that they work with, their neighbors, their family, their loved ones, and have the skills to be able to do that. And,
Yeah.
Simon, I'll just pick this. So one thing that one discussion I've had, and I did this a lot as a school counselor, is how to properly express how you feel.
Mm,
Know, whether it's anger or being scared or anxious, being sad or hurt. How is it that we can actually put names to these feelings and be able to express it in a way that doesn't push people away,
hmm
that doesn't, hurt people, that actually get our point across without causing damage?
mm,
So this was something as school counselor I did all the time,
yeah.
uh, frequently. Uh, let's say have a kid come in super pissed at a teacher or a friend or a parent or whatever it might be. And on my whiteboard in my office, I would have these feelings written down: anger, hurt, fear,
Mm,
guilt, love. And a kid come marching in 110 miles an hour. Dang it, Mr. Jacobson. He or she would be so mad. I say, you sound really pissed off or you're really angry right now. What in the heck happened? You know?
mm,
And say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna work through these things. So tell me about how angry you are. What's it directed towards? And I'd really try to listen to my students and help them put the words to it without judgment,
mm,
without like telling them that they're wrong. Like, well, you shouldn't feel that way. You know,
mm,
I wouldn't do that. Um,
yeah.
so
Boy,
that's
Paul, I want to give you a second, man. That's pretty wonderful. How lucky those kids were to have you while you were at 25 years there. That's pretty amazing to be able to be with people and help them kind of realize those things. That's a real gift to all of us.
hmm, thanks. I loved it.
Yeah, I can tell.
I still actually have tons of passion. You know, as I was driving here, I stopped for lunch. I just jumped in Casey's real quick, and um, uh, the woman at the register's a mom of one of my students, and those connections are just wonderful. I'm
Hmm.
fortunate to have been a school counselor. It's been great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they're all heading back here soon. 2 weeks, and the teachers are back and kids are back. So the chaos ensues.
Absolutely, sure does. Yep. Yeah. So,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
oh, well, Simon, I was just going to pick your brain here. We're both retired educators, and you met with lots of kids who really were at times struggling with their emotions.
Mm,
Right. And so when you think of like kids' parents, these kids themselves, their teachers, other people involved in their life, siblings, what what do you see that um, parents can be, our listeners, let's say, can be aware of that could really help um, with kids regulating their emotions?
mm, great question. Um, one thing I kind of pushed for myself and my associates was to try our best to be emotionally regulated so that, outside of SDI minutes or specifically design instruction for students who struggle with behavior, um, for us to be modeling this way of being.
Mhm.
Now for me, it required me shutting down emotions, which probably wasn't great for me or for them. But to always at least try to present some level-headedness so that they felt some safety with the adults that they were with.
Uh-huh.
And it's a request. It's not a yes because you do the best you can. Because some of the situations are really tough not to react and get upset and pissed off about. So we tried to model that stuff really well.
Ah.
Um, You know, it- it's a great question because being present for a kid when they're in crisis or they're feeling so much feelings, whatever that is, and just being able to hold space for somebody is so important so that they feel safe. I mean, it sounds like, I'm being woo-woo-ish, but if I'm hurt and something's wrong and I need help, but I don't know about it yet, it feels really good to know that my wife's on the other side of that wall.
Mm.
But I'm not consciously thinking of that. That's just one of my subconscious supports, I think, that are part of how I feel better about things. So when we can just be with a kid, whether they're a student or your own child, being able just to hold the space with them for whatever they're feeling. So if they're freaking out and they're having a tantrum and they're crying, you need to shut off the rest of the world so that you don't worry about being judged by people and things like that. And you just need to be with that kid and start figuring out what's going on.
Right.
Part of that's being a kid,
Right.
but that's also our opportunities to give them that emotional support so that they can feel, they gain some emotional intelligence from that because they feel like, okay, somebody's here with me to figure this out because I don't even know what the hell I'm experiencing. So being able just to hold space and be present for somebody, I think is probably the foundational part of it because you don't have to say shit. You can just be there with somebody. And then
Mhm.
as somebody calms down, then you have opportunities to be like, wow, you were really, really, really upset because you didn't get the Fruit Loops. I could tell you're really, really bothered by that. That's
Uh,
it. Like we don't have to do any explanations or excuses. We just give supportive statements that just make somebody feel a little bit more reassured. So if it's a smaller kid, they don't realize what you're doing, but what you're doing is you're tapping into the subconscious of them feeling safe and soothed and taken care of. And then you can start talking about what you're experiencing. Yeah, I was really mad. I hate you, mommy, because you wouldn't let me get the Fruit Loops. Oh, God. So you're really angry and you're really mad at mom because she said no to that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see why you're upset. So, I mean, like, it
mm.
takes a lot of patience, man. It takes a tremendous amount of patience and time. None of us do this correctly. Don't think for 2 seconds that I was able to pull that off all the time. But that's kind of the space we want to get to is being able to be just okay being with somebody who's having feelings,
Mm.
whatever
Mm.
they look like. That's a really good, that's the, I think again, the foundational piece of emotional intelligence is just being able to hold space for someone.
Right. It's interesting. I was talking to a friend the other day who was struggling because their kids were acting out in public and he didn't know what to do. Right.
Mm.
And you made so many points right there that made me think. It's like, okay, just trying to not think about trying very hard to not think about all the outside stuff and focusing on the kid. All right. Trying to model regulating. Because if a parent's going hysterical, a kid probably will, right? And I get as a parent getting hysterical.
Yeah.
Um, and another thing you mentioned there is really trying to hear what that kid has felt after they calm down, right? It sounded like you talking to that child about not getting their Fruit Loops once they got calmed down a bit more, so they could actually express it.
Yeah. And they have to be able to, they have to be taught that. They have to be taught that this is, you're having feelings. This is why
Mhm.
this is happening. And if we're not acknowledging that, we're missing the whole point, kind of, because it's, and I think it's important for us as parents to be aware of what's happening for us too. My biggest regrets as a parent are looking back and seeing about moments where I was reacting to my emotions
Yes.
from what they were getting, from what I was receiving. And so if my kid was upset and pissed off, I got pissed off and upset too. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, I don't have to be pissed off and upset about this. This isn't my thing. Even if it involves me, these are his feelings and his emotions about it. I can sit here and listen to what he's having to say, or help him calm down or whatever. But I have to be aware of what's happening for me too. I think that's where it gets tricky. And I think that's why I always throw that misnomer in there of like, I don't do this all the time. These are ideas that I think are helpful, and but they take a lot of awareness on our part to know what's going on, and I'll tie that back into the whole theme of the show is like, if you're not sure about therapy and you're uncertain about why you react the way you react, or you see certain parents, you see certain men being like, God damn, that guy's an awesome parent. I've talked about a couple of videos I've seen with this dad and his son
Right.
where he walks through his mistakes with his kid, doesn't put anything on this kid at all. And this kid obviously had behaviors and things happen, right? But he walked through everything he did, what he was
Right.
experiencing,
Right. Right.
and made nothing pointed at the kid at all. And so we have to know those parts too of what's kind of, I had two models. Here's a model of one screaming, yelling, or upset stepfather, and I had a dad who was very calm, very cool and collected, right? I'm a mixture of both those things. I often lost my cool and didn't handle things like I want and acted exactly how I didn't want to act.
Yeah.
But again, this is that was long before therapy and lots of other stuff. But if you're thinking about therapy, it's a nice idea of like none of us are prepared for this. Honestly, I don't know how you really get prepared for being a parent. So it's okay to come in and just have a discussion with someone
Mhm.
about, I feel like kids should do this, and this is, the discipline or respect or some of these things that we've carried in from our past, which aren't necessarily a bad thing. Can they be utilized in a way to help this kid become more emotionally intelligent so that when shit goes wrong,
Mhm.
you can teach them how to handle this stuff? Oh God, my dad would really be on his ass about this. You can't do A, B, and C. Fair enough. How do I think I want to approach this? Did that work for me? Was I able to listen when my dad, screamed and yelled at me or spanked me or whatever it was? Did that work for me? Oh man, I don't know if that was great or not. Can I be present with my kid and just hear what he has to say and not take all that other stuff with me? Again, much harder to do than just say out loud. But if we're trying, I think that we've talked a lot on this podcast at different times on different subjects about intentionality, and I think that can be the intention. You're not going to always pull it off. None of us can pull it off all
Yeah,
the time.
not perfect.
Right. Can we do our best? Can we try to keep that in the forefront of my mind? Oh man, he hasn't eaten all day long. He's probably hangry. We could definitely have a situation happen. Okay, how do I want to approach it this time? Just something. Yeah, just something like, yeah, walk in with some. One of my kids loves Scooby snacks. Walk in with some Scooby snacks and be like, hey man, I brought you a snack and a glass of water. How was your day? And just see what happens. But I think, yeah, I think being present for people is so important. And therapy is a way to kind of figure that out because we do talk about how we talk to people. We do talk about what we're conveying in our messages when we talk. And if we don't know how to do it, okay, like you don't know how to do it. So let's figure out how to do it, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yep. You have also, we've talked about this in the past. Um, Sometimes our as a parent and your kids, off the walls, and you're trying to get them calmed down, try to see well what they're so upset about, is our nervous system can just be on fire. And when our nervous system are like instant adrenaline, we are not at our best either, right? We can be reacting to our kids in ways that, oh man, this is not good. I need to calm it down myself. And our
Hmm.
kids can be like feeding off of that energy
Yeah.
that we have, right?
Yeah, and it's so funny you say that because I just watched this woman in the store with her kid. And he was probably two, maybe three.
Mhm.
Very energetic guy, and just bouncing all over the place. And she's like, "Come on, man, you gotta stay with me, stick by me." And so he kind of, did his gymnastics as she moved down the aisles with her and things like that. And then later on, I was checking out when they were checking out, and she was like, "Man." Well, so first of all, this is what I noticed. She took a big deep breath, and she went.
Mhm. Oh,
Listen, man,
so helpful.
you're kind of driving me crazy. I need you to take it easy while I get this done. Right. And these are one of those moments where I wish I had said something positive, like, hey, I saw that breath. That's really a good idea. But who am I to
Yeah,
say that to somebody?
right.
But I saw that and I was like, wow, that's really good regulation. So to your
Yeah.
point, when something's happening like that, it does trigger us, whether it's embarrassment or judgment, as an adult, being able to be like, I tell my clients that all the time. Answer with a breath. If somebody says something to you and you feel that trigger go off, answer with a breath. So before you say anything, just answer with a breath. And I think
Man,
it's great for
I'm
parents
stealing that
too.
one, Simon. That's good.
Yeah, and just it just I mean, literally gives you a second or two, right? It just gives you this a little bit of time. And there's again, we've talked about this before. Like we can make that space so useful, that 2 seconds. Whether it's I take a big deep breath and I'm like, I don't fucking care about who's watching this. I need to be kind and talk to my kid appropriately. I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter what it is, but like
Yeah.
that breath gives you a time just to kind of see what's happening for yourself before you respond too. Well, sorry, yeah, you are responding to something, but it gives you a little bit of space to, God
Mhm.
damn it, I've been telling you this whole time to settle down. Let's, like instead of that,
Like
it's more of like,
grabbing your kid, it's like, okay.
right, yeah.
Oh,
And we've all
slow
done it.
down.
We've all screamed it. I've screamed at my kids in the store. I've grabbed my kids by the arm. I've done all that stuff. So I totally get it. It's just if I had known there was a different path, I really would have taken it as a parent. If I had like somebody said, I know this sounds really dumb, but like a requirement of some sort. You're gonna have a baby. You are an adult. Are
Mhm.
you prepared? Do you know what you're getting yourself into? And I would have been a cocky young person, just like everybody else, and been like, I'll figure it out. I got this. I mean, that would have definitely happened, but I don't know. I wonder if given the opportunity, I would do it differently. So that's why I feel at times like it would be great to have some training for people how to be parents, because
Oh my
if you don't
gosh.
know your own shit, it's going to be tough.
Well, and especially raising a baby that can't talk, can't tell you what's wrong. Eh, And I think, oh, my heart goes out a lot of times to new parents that
Hmm.
don't, maybe they've never been around babies and now they're expected to raise one.
Hmm.
It's tough. Well,
Yeah, I've had clients that have said like, I think it'd be good for both of you to look at each other in the eyes and tell each other that we're really in the shit right now. Just be really honest with each other so that you can just be like, we are in it. Like we're new parents or we have a toddler and a baby. Like recognize for each other that you guys are in this together and you're both suffering because it's a tough job.
Yeah.
So give each other some connection in how hard it is, you know? And to kind of pull it back to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to boys, I think I would, I didn't raise a girl. So, I did, sorry. I had a foster daughter for a few years, so that's unfair to me. But, and she was great. But I didn't have like an infant girl growing up and raising a daughter. And, so boys, I think for me now, boys was so much easier just because of the social aspect of things right now for girls.
Mm.
Um, that would be really hard. That would be really, really hard, that you start seeing your 7-year old putting on makeup and doing stuff and looking pretty and feeling good because
Mhm.
she's starting to pick up on things in society and she's starting to think that like this is how you are as a girl, right? So I think that's really, really hard. I think now boys have as much of an impact when it comes to social media and things like that, but I
Course.
still think it's not as severe. I don't know if that's fair to say or not, but I think with boys, it's different in the sense that it's easier because their aggressive emotions, their anger, their play, not that women don't have anger and don't play, but we're so physically active and we're so wrestling, running around outside, climbing trees and just so active. And it's a different beast, I think, in a sense that you worry about their physical safety.
Mm.
Again, not that I wouldn't worry about my daughter's physical safety, but when I was a kid, again, back to me, right? We were wild.
Yeah.
We were building jumps out of plywood that wasn't thick enough that would fucking launch us into the air like a catapult because we didn't have any supports in it. And we'd hit the ground and we would have bumps and bruises and be like, go get a different board. We gotta make it stiffer. Or
Yeah.
we just
Did,
kept doing stuff like that. It's just so I think it's more a physical safety thing, but
did,
it's what's hard too, Paul, is I would think
did
I
you
would
ever?
have sorry.
I'm sorry, but you're talking about these jumps. Did you ever jump like one of your friends?
Oh
Like
yeah.
one of your friends just lie down and you jump one of your friends. It's like, oh my
And
gosh.
my excuse is that we had it down. We'd all jumped a few times already and knew we cleared that distance. So it
Yep.
really wasn't that big of a deal. But just that idea right there is not okay.
Yeah, we weren't thinking, were we?
No, no, no.
Luckily, we survived.
Yeah, and this will be the last time I say this. I hope people don't take me talking just specifically about boys means that I don't think that women experience a lot of the same things. So I want to kind of preface that there, but I'll stop saying that. Um,
It's true though.
yeah, it's true. And my wife, so we blended a family, as people have heard. So I had 4 boys in the house at once. Um, I don't know if there's any other way to put it than it was just fucking chaos all the time. I mean, honestly, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I don't, it's hard for me. I mean, we had wonderful times. Such a beautiful place for my kids to grow up and be part of this kind of blended family. But it was chaos
Mhm.
all the time. We had multiple people, instruments and all the things everybody talks about. We had it with 4 boys. One was very into show choir, and that is the craziest, most amazing thing ever to watch him be part of that. I have wrestlers, tennis players, cello players, saxophone players, guitar players, all sports players. Like all of them are going 1,000 miles an hour all the time. And I know, there's so many things they were part of, and it was so there were times where we really had to force ourselves to stop and connect. So spring break was one. That was the first thing my wife said when we blended our families. Like, I want to go on a spring break together. And I said, where are we going? She's like, I want to go to Destin. I said, we can't afford to fly 6. We got to drive. Cool. Then we'll drive. That's a whole podcast by itself, the traveling to Destin. But like but that gave us time together, right? We
Sounds like a
really were
movie.
trying to join this family. We were really trying to get these guys to bond and be together. And our two youngest, instant friends. That was awesome. Our two oldest got along great, very different people, but got along wonderfully. So we had to have moments where we stopped everything. Um, I think part of me is avoiding the idea that I still have a lot of regret into how I handled things with my sons. That I didn't provide that emotional intelligence like I was just speaking to a little bit ago, the thing I was telling you you should do that I didn't do, um, is being able to hold that space. Being able when one of my kids is really upset, this is just my experience of me not taking it personally. This kid's losing his shit. What did I do wrong? I must be a horrible parent for this to be taking place. That was often, I would say, most of my reactions to things that were happening. So then I would get pissed. There
Ah,
would be a lot of self-judgment involved.
mm,
So that's what made it hard, was that. And I didn't come to that understanding until they're all adults.
mm,
So that's been wonderful to kind of, in my mind, repair some of these things,
ah, yeah.
Um, so I think people should know that repair is possible at any point for anything. It's always available to us when we can find the space for it. And again, my kids got tired of me doing that in the beginning. Once I came to this awareness and this understanding, they're like, "Dad, you were fine, relax."
Mm,
But I still see those things too,
yeah.
and I think that's why we have the podcast too, because I am trying to be aware of how much I'm talking, but I want people to know. I don't want people to re-experience what I experienced.
Hmm.
So I want people to know about how these things can be shifted and changed,
Yeah.
which is why we really wanted to put this idea out here for having a show on therapy. So people who are contemplating this can be like, well, oh, Jesus, my dad was an alcoholic and my mom was terrible because she was trying to manage him and us. Wow, I
Mm,
wonder if I'm going to be good at this. My girlfriend's pregnant or my wife's pregnant, like, oh, I want to see what that's about. And again, it's not like therapy's not coming in and blaming your parents for all the shit. It's like, oh, wait, this situation might have impacted me in some way.
hmm.
Can I
Oh,
understand this in a way that I can then make sure I don't translate it into my kids?
right.
Because we all say that. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be like that. But do we go and do anything about it? And that's the
Right.
hard part because this shit's ingrained. It's not part of like you're making choices all the time. You're reacting to things that you don't know you're reacting from. And finding that out is a exploratory thing that can be so valuable so that you can feel like we all want our kids' experiences to be different than ours in some ways. So
Right. Yeah.
how do I change that? If I
Well,
feel like, oh, and again, you're not coming in for us to say, well, you're a shitty parent. You got to do it this, and this way. Yeah. Why does it piss you off the baby's crying so mad? Why do you get so angry when the baby cries?
right. Right.
It's just a baby crying, you
Hmm.
know?
Right.
And your wife can handle it. Why can't I handle My wife can handle it. Why can't I handle it? What's my problem?
Mm,
It's not a problem. You want to behave differently and you want to understand why what you're experiencing is causing that to happen.
right.
And I think that's, I think for boys, like men being able to show and model, emotional intelligence or even regulation in some sense is a huge piece. And I'm sure you had that when you were, I mean, of course you're a calm and cool teacher, but I mean, I'm sure that you modeled this kind of calm way of thinking
Yeah.
about things.
Yeah. I did. You know, Simon, I'm really into emotionally focused therapy. And one thing that's a recurring theme I've heard you talk about here is sometimes when we as a parent are reacting to our kids, we assign a meaning to what's happening. And oftentimes this meaning can be like like this damn kid won't listen. It could be it could be that what am I doing wrong? Why can't I get this to get better? Why do they keep lying to me? Or why do they run away from me when I want to talk to them? Why is it that they're yelling back at me. They're talking back, you know. We can assign this meaning to that that
Mm,
really can make us uh, really angry and sad and um, like worry that, God, is this ever going to get any better?
hmm
This is hard stuff, and this is taking forever. Well, when are they going to listen? You know, uh,
hmm
so with parents, it can be good for us to, as you were talking about, like your sons, and as you've gotten older, you've kind of, look back and okay, I could have probably done that differently, and trying to repair that with your kids. That's that's so important, right?
hmm
Um, one thing like I've seen this in social media lately about young people really separating themselves from their parents
mm
and how sometimes therapy can be to blame for people wanting to really distance themselves from their parents.
hmm
That headline that I've seen numerous times actually in the last month, so it really saddens me, as a therapist, because I think, mm, you know, we're all about, I think most of us therapists are really about the repair of that,
hmm
right? Because
Yeah.
um, we shouldn't just cut people out of our life um, most of the time. Like, what can we do to try to make things better? I'm all for having boundaries, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
to, see what we can do to repair it.
Yeah, and I I think, and this might sound crass, but if if you're finding it difficult to be emotionally regulated when things go wrong with your kids, there's something up.
Yeah,
Like I think that's a real reality that people need to kind of think about too. Is that if you are, you know, and I think it could be, this is probably too broad of a stroke, honestly, but I feel like that's kind of what it comes down to, is that if you are struggling being a parent, there's a good chance that part of that's normal, and there's also a good chance that there is other shit going on for you that you aren't aware of. Because we really, and again, I'm not speaking, I messed this up, so I didn't know that. And so if I had known that me just being present with my kids when they're having some emotional upheaval of some sort, and all I had to do was just be there, I don't think that would have helped me, because I had so much other shit going on inside of me that I wasn't aware of what was happening.
right.
And so we don't know that shit. And that's why it's so important, So therapy is an opportunity to just discover that stuff and be like,
Sure.
oh shit, I use my stepfather, that was his way of communicating when he was angry, just screaming and yelling,
Mhm.
right? I found myself doing just that same behavior, knowing that I didn't want to be doing it and not knowing why and how to stop it
Yeah.
until I went to therapy. Then I was like, oh, it's a learned thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a learned thing. Again, this is my experience. It's a learned thing that I now am aware of. At least now I'm aware. And so when I feel that boiling up and I go off, I'm gonna go about ready to go off, I might just be able to pause for a second and be like, okay, I don't want to be yelling. What should I do? Well, I don't know what the hell to do, so I'm gonna walk away or whatever. But like that's what therapy did for me, is it kind of uncovered these things, so I had more understanding about what and why I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And
Yeah.
so that's the idea behind therapy, is it's not for me to then go, oh yeah, my stepfather's a piece of shit, and so I can blame
Ooh.
him for my behaviors. Well, that's not what therapy is about. Therapy is about going, oh, it came from this place, and you want that to change.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about how we go about changing. And it begins with the awareness that that's what the connection is. And again, it doesn't always have to be childhood shit, but it's making those maybe you had an incident in college that bothered you, but something in your past happened that usually is causing these kind of feelings to be happening. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a bad thing to figure out what that is. I think that's maybe the change we're wanting to have when it comes to the idea of what therapy is it's not, oh, I'm broken because my dad yelled at me, and so now I'm a yeller, and now I have to go get fixed for my yelling. Sounds so silly to me.
Yeah.
I'm a yeller. Why am I a yeller? Oh shit, I went to therapy and I was able to figure out that I'm a yeller because my stepdad's a yeller. Okay, well, so it came from somewhere else. It's a learned thing. So, okay, I'm gonna try to be more aware of it. It's just such a different mindset.
Right. And you say that, and maybe your stepdad's dad was a yeller, and his dad,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
It- I oftentimes say this that if we want to change that pattern, we have to work on it on purpose. You know?
Hmm.
Okay. So my dad did this. If I want to be different, I have to do it on purpose and
Hmm.
work on it. It's important stuff.
Yeah, and too, like
I
you think about. Oh, sorry, but
Well, I was just gonna say I witnessed that in my dad.
mm,
So I I know that he went through some things with his dad that he wanted to make sure that I didn't go through it as his son.
mm,
And I witnessed my dad still do, where he on purpose wants to be different than his dad. And
mm,
that's that's hit me too. Certainly, all of us have experienced certain things from our parents that okay, I want to tweak that, right? I want to be do things a little different. I want to respond a little differently to my kids. Um,
hmm.
and therapy is a great space to grow those skills and the understanding of the why.
Yeah.
Why is it that I yell? Why is it that I, you know, shame my kid or I make them feel bad or try to
Hmm.
motivate them by fear? Um,
Yeah. Well, I think too, sometimes men, especially in therapy, have to get past, say your dad's your hero. The sun rises and sets on your dad,
Yeah.
but your dad was a cold motherfucker who
Mhm.
didn't provide some of those things that were really important, right?
Never talked to
And-
him about emotion at all.
Right. Yeah, and I'm using kind of heavy expletives because that doesn't mean that's a bad thing.
Mhm.
You come to therapy and be talk about how much you love your dad, but then wow, these and figure out, oh my gosh, but these pieces were missing. It doesn't have to diminish your dad.
Right. Exactly.
It doesn't have to diminish anybody. It just is like, oh, okay, shit. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm gonna do that differently. I love my dad still, and I can still recognize those things, but I'm gonna do it differently.
Yeah.
If I feel like I have a good relationship. I mean,
Mhm.
that's why I guess I put that intentionally to just be like, yeah, it's not always, it's not, I don't think ever necessarily a blaming game when it comes to our parents. I mean, there's definitely some situations that can have some blame, but there's always an explanation on the other side of that, whether it's their parents, like you said, or the parents above them. There's always going to be some kind of understanding that can take place
Yeah.
that can bring us peace now, even though it's 4 generations back. And to
Mhm.
me, that's fucking exciting.
Right.
I want to know that shit, especially when I'm looking at it as my past is like, these are my experiences. I'm not going to label them good and bad. They're making up who I am now.
Mm.
I'm going to try to look back on some of those parts of myself that need a lot of grace, and some understanding to where I was at. But we have to be able to find these places so that we can feel okay about who we are. And I think that can make us a really successful parent. And I think it's also fair to say that you could do everything right
Mhm.
and shit still goes.
Oh, we're human.
Hmm.
And we're not perfect. We don't react this. We're not robots, right? We
Yeah.
don't react the same way every time.
Yeah. And you're raising a person who's going to have all their own things too.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Hmm. Yeah, it's tough. And we're doing our best.
Yeah, I should say in here, I think, didn't I yell at parents last time? I can't remember if we did this last time, but one of these times I said I fucking hate parents.
Mhm.
And I meant it funny. And just
Mhm.
so people know, I'm a parent too. I know I was an asshole at times. I totally get it. So I'm not I'm not trying to be mean to anybody in particular.
Yeah.
As an educator, though, it can be stressful with parents.
Mhm.
But yeah, we're all just trying to do the best we can,
Yeah.
all the time. And I think that's important too. whether it's boys or girls, we're trying. I mean, as an just a, just the idea right now of trying to monitor, a huge family with social media and all the things you need to be aware of, whether it's porn for kids or whether it's easy access to that or
Hmm.
inappropriate things on YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Like it feels like an impossible task as a parent at times. Like how are we going to stop this? This is unsustainable. It can feel like that. Like how are we going to make it through this?
Yeah. I want to talk on this, Simon, because people had a hard time believing this when I would share this, but I bet at least 70%, at least maybe 80 plus some days, 70-80% of my day was actually working with parents as a school counselor.
Hmm.
And um, largely parents that wanted to find out information about something regarding their child. Um, they're like wondering what to do.
Hmm.
Something's going on in a class, and the parent has heard this from their child, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And I did a lot of listening, and um, oftentimes I would get a parent who would call kind of in a rage, really angry, disappointed, frustrated with either a teacher or their kid. And I would just try to envision them having like this huge balloon just full of emotion and it needs to let some air out. Right. So I would just let them go and I'd really try to validate how they're feeling and let this. And most of the time, most of the time, w- just hearing them out, validating that fear, and just um, like that passion that they have for their kids to have the best experience possible. For me to validate that, oftentimes that was mostly enough.
Hmm.
Like, okay, yeah, everything will be okay. All right, that's fine. All right, thank you. I did lots of that listening. And so, our listeners, if you are someone who you see like the actions that your kids are doing that's scary, it's like, oh crap. Like I saw them like totally cheating on writing their paper last night. And I don't even know what to do. Or, you know, yeah, I actually witnessed my son cheating on his girlfriend last night. What do I do about that?
Oh,
And
wow.
um, you know, all kinds of things. And this is what can be about for people. You know,
Mhm.
being a parent's hard, and you want the best for your kids, and to be able to have someone else to bounce ideas off of, because sometimes you don't want to go to your friends, you don't want to go to your parents, and to
Mhm.
a therapist is a great person to just bounce some ideas off of. What
Yeah.
do you think?
Yeah, and I think to your point too about the balloon, which is such a good thing, it's such a good metaphor. It's like that's what that's what therapy can be too. It's part of that. It's just that
Right.
it's just the listening aspect of it. Sometimes it is that. It is just, we might be able to get some questions in there, but sometimes there's a lot to get through. You know, I have a client who calls it a mag dump. That sometimes he comes in and he just needs to just blow it all out. So it's like, yeah, I just, and then he's conscious of it. So he leaves space for therapy too. But often it's just like I have all these thoughts and ideas, some connect, some don't, and it's very confusing. I'm uncertain. Can you help me sort through this stuff?
Yeah. Simon, thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing this up. So I'm going to self-disclose for a second. So, the last few months I've been back in therapy myself. And the type of client I am is I'm very curious about things. And so I like to um, pick the brain of my therapist and get their advice on things, and have them help me process through stuff sometimes.
Hmm.
But yesterday, I had a completely different session. I I went 100 miles an hour. And I
Mm.
was extremely expressive, and I just went for about an hour straight. And I just was not necessarily venting, but I was sharing a lot, just going.
Hmm.
And at the end of the session, my therapist said, "So, Paul, is this what you came to therapy to talk about today, or was there something else?" And it's like, man, I haven't stopped thinking about that question ever since
Mm.
because it's made me think, hmm, I don't know. I don't know. I and it that
Stolen. That is a stolen thing. I'm using that. That's so good.
it was so good. And I have not stopped thinking about it. And I have uh realized, wow, I needed that yesterday. Like I just needed to go and just talk for 55 minutes straight. Uh, and that's not normal for me. So, our listeners, I want to normalize that each session can be different. Sometimes
Mm.
it's this way, sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's this way. Um, as a parent, sometimes you've gone through something that, if you're in therapy, you can go to your therapist and just frickin' unload because you're frustrated or you're angry or disappointed or scared or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah. I have so many clients that come in and vent like that and swear and say things and then I'm sorry. They're really not this. They're really not that. Like
Uh,
and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Yeah. Life's hard as shit sometimes. Like it's a difficult thing to process all this stuff. I get it.
yeah.
And that's such a mental like it's not a car slamming into a brick wall, but it's an immediate stop of your thinking of like, maybe it was. Maybe that's all I need to do today is I had to come in and vent and get all this stuff out. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to me lose my mind today. Thanks for the hour. You know what I mean? I think that's okay too.
Yeah.
I think it's also to be like, if there's space for it to be like, God, was that? Oh shit, maybe not. Maybe there's more there than I'm aware of. You know what I mean? Like, but it gives you that, I don't know, it's such a good stop to the cycle or rumination or whatever takes place in our head sometimes when we're venting and things like that. It's a really nice, gentle bringing something back into awareness. That's the thing at the
Uh-huh.
top of my head. Brings you right back into the moment. Is this what we wanted to do today? And maybe it was. Cool. But maybe there's something else too. That's
And it
cool.
it also got me thinking, Simon, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I can tend to be perfectionistic sometimes. And it made me question, am I doing therapy right?
Mm.
And then I thought, ooh, I wonder if my clients feel that way. Am I doing
Mm.
therapy right? You know?
Yeah.
And I'd say, yes, you are. Yep.
Okay.
What you're doing, that's therapy.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate that
Right?
so much. That's great. Well, I mean, I think we all have those imposter syndrome moments, where you're just not quite sure.
Mhm.
And that happens to me more often than not because I retain information so differently, it feels like, where I don't have this like immediate access to things to utilize them. It has to kind of like go through a weird therapy filter in my brain for it to happen. And it's hard sometimes,
Mhm.
but knowing that we're doing okay. Do you know what I mean? Like we don't have, there is a sense of perfection that I think we kind of worry we have to have when it comes to insurance and medical things like that, or HIPAA and things like that. But Otherwise, we just need to be here and
Yeah.
just do, I think of our supervisors saying, you just need to show up. It's the client who's going to be the one who's
Direct.
going to be asking these questions of themselves. You may initiate some things, but eventually they're going to be questioning what they're thinking too, or why am I feeling that way? You
Mm.
know? And it just allows you this space to kind of, I don't know. I guess people are going to just have to get used to me saying it nauseum, but it's just such a wonderful exploration of what makes up who we are. And
Mhm.
yeah, there's some terrible shit in there, but it's still part of us. So we have to find some acceptance so we can move forward in a different way. And I
Yeah.
think like therapy is just coming to those moments, you know? I didn't choose to be okay with my stepdad now. You know what I mean? I came to this place where I was like, okay, I'm 55. Should I, hold on to this stuff anymore? Is it worth it? Yeah, these things happened when I was a kid. Um, I understand. I have more understanding about why they happen now. Do I want to use the word forgiveness? Maybe not, but that's okay. I'm in a different understanding for him, and I don't have a lot of hatred, or anger towards it, so that's good. But I don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? I don't have to let all these things go. I can just identify them, have some understanding, and then be like, okay, now what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And for you, like, was it harder being a guidance counselor or being a therapist? Oh, that's a good one for
Mm.
you.
So
Oh,
different.
maybe hard is not the right word. How are they different? That's much better.
They're so different. And there are some skills that are similar, but I'll just share the biggest difference for me as a school counselor. My A big part of my job was to be a calming factor for the people around me, whether it's students who were venting or were upset, teachers who are upset and angry administrators, parents. My role was to calm people down. And I got to be very good at that. Uh, I had to learn the hard way.
Mm,
As a therapist, I actually need to get people to feel their emotions more. So
mm.
instead of calming people down, I need to light a fire under them a lot
Oh,
more and actually feel the anger
mm,
and get them to feel the anger, to get them to actually sit with the fear and anxiety or the sadness, the hurt
mm,
or the loneliness, and just sit with it and get them to feel it.
mm-hmm.
And my supervisor, Chrissy Flathers, is a freaking master at this, at being able to elicit that emotion and sit with it with people. Because when we can get people to feel, they will be moved to change.
Mm,
And I love that Chrissy has taught me this is when we can get people to feel their anger, their fear, their sadness, anxieties, loneliness, all of those uncomfortable feelings, we can move them to change.
mm,
And that is the exact opposite that I worked over 25 years as a school counselor was I was always trying to calm all those emotions.
mm-hmm.
Now I have to work at trying to get people to feel them. And
Nice.
it's tough. It's actually a major adjustment.
I bet. I think one thing I'll point out, Paul, first of all, I love you with all your flaws. So,
I have
um,
fun. You must
and,
love me.
but I think like you're calm because I chuckled at the very beginning when you said that because I think that's what you do pull into therapy is that calm demeanor. You may
Yeah.
have to shift it to elicit feelings and things like that, but just the ability to be a calm presence, and I think maybe
Yeah.
you probably learned when you're a school counselor,
There's
is such
positive.
a
Yep.
it's a big part of it that I think that's really beneficial. That's why I chuckled. I was like, I don't know when I can't be calm around you. I think you seem pretty calm, you know what I mean?
I
You're a
am.
calm guy.
I
Yeah.
am. And there is a place for that. Um, in therapy to be calm, right? And not, we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast about being a parent that can self-regulate,
Mm,
right? That we aren't like on fire just like our kids. Um, it's so it is an important skill to be able to be calm as a parent or an educator, a therapist. And I'm just sharing kind of the difference between school counseling and therapy is
mhm.
sometimes in therapy it's really beneficial to mirror people's emotions.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think that was so beautifully looped back into what we started with. I'll kind of wrap it up too. I'll offer you a thought. I'll give you my last thought about parenting boys. Um, like I said, when you first talked to me about it, I started getting kind of emotional when I was thinking about it because for a long time I looked at my kids. Again, I loved my kids, had a great time with my kids, but I think I often looked at my boys as people I needed to manage
Mm,
instead of people I needed to love.
that's a
Now,
powerful word.
I of course loved them, but did I love them in those some of those moments where I could look back and feel less regret about around, right? Um, approaching, being with your boys with love, and I think especially for a male, for a man, um, to be more self-aware of who they are and what their struggles are and what's happening for them so that they can model for their sons what it looks like to be a man, which is taking care of people and providing for people and being, strong or whatever it is. That's part of how we're all made up. But how do you treat your wife? How do you speak to her in front of them? How do you two communicate? How are discussions had? How do you respond to each other? Do you look at your spouse and you're actively listening and really trying to understand what they're feeling so that you can validate it and see if there's things that need to be changed or adjusted. And you see, in your boys, seeing a man do that way of communicating is huge because they're going to get the fucking gamut of what it looks like to be a man, which is punch people, shoot people, mock people, whatever you want to say, in movies and media, that's what it is. There's not a lot of examples of like thoughtful, loving, caring people. Well, it's not very exciting necessarily. But that being said, like that's the model we need. We
Right.
need for dads to be this person that sees himself as an equal with his spouse and sharing responsibilities and I just think it's really important that one thing we can do as a parent, and again, I think that would have been really good advice at some point too when I was younger, would be, hey, listen, you just need to be the best model that you can for this person. This thing's a sponge, man. Like this thing is going to absorb everything that you do and don't do. So be aware.
Yeah.
And maybe that would have been more helpful of like, instead of spouting off about something, I was like, oh, the kid's here. Better try to keep it calm and respond in a way where, I'm not too escalated or whatever. I'm using fancy words, but I think that's a really important part of raising boys is being a really good model. And again, not
Model.
being the best, I should say this, being the best model you can be. Because it's okay for them to see you fuck up too and still handle it, still be able to move past it, repair, whatever it is. Like that's okay too. That's good parenting is for them seeing you mess up. So I'm not asking people for perfection because it's not possible. But I think if our intention is, I'm going to try to be a wonderful model for my kids so that they can be the best spouse they can be, so they can be the best, communicate with people out in the public or professors or teachers. Like, this is how you do it. You need to model these things. And I think that's the hard part too, is that I think that's what causes people to be embarrassed about behaviors that are in public, is that they're getting this from somewhere,
Hmm.
possibly. I mean, they're also kids,
Yeah.
but this could be come from somewhere else too. So there's some judgment there. So I just encourage people, if you're thinking about therapy when it comes to parenting or raising boys, I would love my wife's perception of this. Well, I guess I kind of know,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
yeah, from a woman's perspective of raising four boys,
Right.
how is it different? Like I said, I was just a sergeant. I- Whereas she was much more warm and loving and caring. And I mean, I tried my best to be that way too. But I was definitely the disciplinarian and kind of the one who held everybody accountable or whatever you want to say. So I would just offer that as my last thought about what it means to raise boys is be the model, be the reason why they are who they are in the world because they had you as a dad. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And going with that, Simon, let's say you, as a father, you want to be the model. At times we can feel like, okay, well, I want to teach my kids certain things that I'm not necessarily great at. Right?
Mm,
And so seeking out um, therapy sometimes can be good at that. It's like, okay,
yeah.
well, I want my kid to be able to communicate with their kids or their partner um, a certain way, and I'm not very good at it myself. And I want to model this. So, going to therapy can be a great way to be able to learn some of those skills. Um, I think of um, let's say a parent, could be a mom or a dad, wants to help their son to be able to express their emotions in appropriate ways that don't like dismiss people, that don't point fingers at people, but can actually express anger in an appropriate way,
Yeah.
right? And okay, how can we do that as a parent? Like how can we teach our kids to express anger? And a lot of it goes back to your point of being a good model of it, right? Because our kids are learning from us and how we express anger. Um, yeah, so it's just so much. I mean, we could, like
Yeah.
have a whole uh like series
Series,
of this,
whole
but
series on parents. And yeah, I just think it's just important for everybody to remember that I think it's important to normalize it.
it's
Whether
hard.
you're whether you have a newborn or a toddler or a kid going through puberty, like it's
Mhm.
a fucking crazy road. And so you don't have to, even if you came in to see a therapist or like, what the hell is wrong with my kid? It's this, and this. Like, what? Like that's so good. Like we know where kids' brains are. We've been taught like where kids are at developmentally and what they're capable of doing and not doing. Like we know a lot of this stuff. And if we don't know, we'll fucking find it for you. But like this is part of our job. And so again, it's just back to like get some answers.
Yep. Thanks, Simon.
Hey man, it was awesome. Awesome podcast. Everybody who listened, we thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us ramble on about therapy. And it just means a lot to us that you're taking time out of your day to listen. So thank you so much for that. Paul, thank you so much, buddy. Always a
Thank
pleasure.
you, Simon. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good one. Adios. All right. And now for our disclaimer. The content shared in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional mental health treatment, diagnoses, or advice. Although we are licensed therapists, this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship between the host and the listeners. The discussions, examples, and opinions shared are based on our professional experience and perspectives, but they are not personalized to your specific situation. If you're experiencing emotional distress, mental health concerns, or a crisis, we strongly encourage you to seek support from a qualified mental health professional in your area. If you are in immediate danger or need urgent assistance, please contact local emergency services or a crisis hotline. In the US, you can call 988 for suicide hotline. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree that the hosts are not providing therapy, counseling, or clinical services, and any actions you take based on the content are your own responsibility. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of trauma, mental health challenges, or sensitive experiences. Thanks.